Bueno, cuentavientes, ya saben que a mí me fascina hablar con mujeres inteligentes, exitosas, talentosas. Y déjenme les cuento una historia que hace muchos años en un avión estaba yo leyendo un artículo de la revista Forbes de las mujeres que se hicieron solas más importantes en Estados Unidos y leí la historia de Jamie Kern Lima. Y curiosamente, cómo es la vida, un año después estaba yo comprando sus cosméticos en Sephora en los Estados Unidos y 3 años después estaba siendo la embajadora de su marca en México cuando lanzaron It Cosmetics en México. Y hoy tengo el placer de conversar con ella con motivo del lanzamiento de su libro Believe It, que se llama How to Go from Underestimated to Unstoppable. O sea, créetelo, cómo pasar de ser subestimada a imparable. So, Jamie, thank you so much for being with us. It is a pleasure to talk to you. I followed you forever. So, I was telling everybody that many years ago, I was on a flight reading a Forbes magazine on self made women, and I read your story. And I was like so shocked on how amazing what you've been able to achieve. 1 year later, I was buying your products. The first one was by Under Eye, the concealer. And then a couple of years later, I was being the ambassador for the brand launch in Mexico. So I'm so proud and so honored to be, tied to you in so many ways. So welcome to the show, and it's wonderful to have you. So
Martha,
let's
thank you so
start with
much.
the story. So how did you start your business and how did you get into the makeup world?
I started in the midst of what I thought was a setback in my life, actually. I thought, Martha, I was in my dream job. I don't know if you felt this way since you were a little girl too, but I used to watch Oprah in my living room as growing up as a little girl. And I always thought, I would do what you do. I always thought one day I'm going to, share other people's stories with the world. And I was working as a journalist and as a television news anchor, and I thought I was in my dream job. And then I went through this big season of setback. I started getting rosacea, which is, for me, it would show up in the form of just bright red bumps and like sandpaper, like texture and bright red skin. And I would be, so I saw a dermatologist and learned there's no cure and started trying to find makeup products that work. And I couldn't. And I would be anchoring the news live, like on live television. And I would hear in my earpiece, from my producer, like, there's something on your face. There's something on your face. You need to wipe it off. You need to wipe it off. And I knew there was nothing I could wipe off. I knew it was just the makeup wasn't working. And so I kind of went through this season of self-doubt for a while where I thought like, oh my gosh, am I going to get fired? Are people going to change the channel? Like I could, and I tried to find every makeup, I tried everything, like the stuff in the drugstores, the department stores, the professional makeup lines, and nothing would work. And I realized like my whole life I'd seen commercials or magazines and I'd never seen anyone with rosacea. I was like, what am I going to do? And I had this idea, if I could create a product that actually worked for people that didn't have perfect skin and people that, had sensitive skin or different skin challenges, it would probably help a lot of people. And then also, Martha, I had this dream of like, well, if I do that, I also want to show real women and men of all different like ages, shapes, sizes, skin tones as models and call them beautiful and mean it. And really try to shift culture around inclusivity and beauty. So that was kind of this big dream. And I was in a tough time though. A lot of us, I think maybe a lot of people in your community right now have been in a moment like this where you have a gut feeling, like a dream on your heart, like you're supposed to take that chance, but then your head comes in and says like, oh, but you're not qualified. You don't know what you're doing. In my case, I had no money, no connections, but I just kept having this gut feeling I was supposed to take a chance and leave a dream job, like give up on a dream and take that chance of going after a new one. And it was one of those moments in life where I made the decision to trust myself. And it changed everything. And I launched It Cosmetics in my living room. Didn't know how hard it was going to be. As you know, Martha, the first 3 years of it causing, because now everyone sees it today, right? Like it's now the largest luxury makeup company in the United States, for example. It was so exciting to launch in Mexico. Like it's a fairy tale now. But what people don't realize is the first 3 years, all the retailers said no. All the experts said, no, it's not going to work. Change who you are, change what you're doing. We don't believe in you. And so for 3 years, it was just a really tough journey of learning to trust my gut. I had to pray like crazy. And just like, I knew why I was doing what I was doing. And I just kept leaning on that to try and get through all those tough times. And I'm glad I did.
I'm so glad you did as well. Can't live without the CC cream. You know, when I hear you talk, I think of so many people out there listening to this interview and thinking, I've also had a great idea. I also have a gut feeling. And I think that's so valuable to have this book with this specific title, because I think that we always end up at the same place. This is about believing in yourself. This is about self-confidence. And I think that many times, many of the people outside, many of you watching and listening are thinking, you know what? I also have dreams. I also have a gut feeling, but I don't think I can do it. I don't believe enough in myself. I don't think I can pull it off. I'm scared. So my question to you, and I can relate exactly to what you're saying, because when I started my business 21 years ago, I didn't know about technology. I didn't know about business. Everybody told me I was crazy. And 21 years later, here we are, you and I. And when they ask me as well, like, what is the key? It's always hard, really hard for me to answer. So I'm going to ask you, how can you believe when you don't?
How can you believe when you don't?
Exactly.
Best question ever. Best question, because everybody can connect with that question, right? And Martha, literally the whole reason I wrote this book, the whole reason I wrote Believe It, is because when people Google my story, they just see like, oh, waitress builds billion-dollar company, and they think it was just easy, or it was a fairy tale. And really, the real story is of a girl. Like, my story is a girl who went from not believing in herself to believing in herself. And that's really, this whole book is about how. But one of the things I'll say is I do believe everyone can believe in themselves. I think the most important first thing is that they have to want to. They have to want to. That's the first thing, and believe that it's possible. And then some of the things that I think are the most important in terms of tools, I don't believe, this is just me, I think when you learn to believe in yourself and trust yourself, hear your own intuition and trust it, for me, that matters so much more. And when I look at and I have the blessing now of mentoring so many women and have met tens of thousands of entrepreneurs. And when I look at the ones that make it and the ones that build something that lasts, right? It's never the people that are the smartest or have the most money or went to the right school, or like, I truly believe where you come from or even where you're at right now doesn't have to determine where you're going. I think when you learn to truly believe that your own dreams are possible, I think that is more powerful than anything else. So a couple things I would say on how to do that. The first thing is you have to want to. You have to make the decision that you want to believe in yourself, because at the end of the day, and I don't mean to be brutal about this or anything, but like, there's some people that would rather not. They'd rather play it safe and live in that space of I don't believe in myself, because when you do that, you almost stay in your comfort zone, and you also sometimes make other people around you more comfortable, right? Yeah. Our lives are a lot easier when we actually don't become the person we're born to be. Our lives are actually easier when we don't take that risk of stepping into all of who we are, right? But for people who want to do that, I do think it's possible. And I think the biggest thing is, first of all, learning how to hear our own intuition, our own knowing, and making the decision to trust it. And I think that every one of us, every person listening right now who's part of your community, who's watching this, I don't think it's an accident. I think that maybe they need to hear this today, but I think that every one of us have this knowing, this this intuition, this still small voice inside of us. And I think a lot of times what happens is life teaches us to not even hear it anymore, right? All of a sudden our self-doubt gets loud, and all of a sudden we have other people's opinions all around us, and those get loud. In my case, I had the lack of success of my own idea and dream. And sometimes when we launch something, we go after it and we don't see success right away, or we have experts telling us it's not going to work or to change what we're doing, that can get really loud too. And one thing that I think is important to call out too is a lot of us have like really well-meaning friends or family or partners who love us, but when we share our dreams or our goals of boosting our own confidence or belief or whatever it might be with them, we all of a sudden just like the things they say lower our vibration.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And
Absolutely.
So I think a big thing after just making the decision that you have to want to believe in yourself is really doing inventory of where are you at with learning how to hear your own intuition, and where are you at with learning to trust it. And one of the things I talk about and believe it is how, because I had to do this I still have to do this, Martha. I still have to do this. I have to literally learn. I have to turn down the volume. I literally imagine myself turning down the volume on my own self-doubt in my own head because it gets loud. Turning down the volume on other people's opinions when I know, okay, they meant well, but it doesn't feel right in my gut. So I need to not let that magnify in my own head, right? And turn up the volume on our own intuition. And so many women especially will say things like, I don't even know how to hear my own intuition, or it's been a long time since I've ever heard it. And I think that one thing to say about that quickly is just to give yourself grace. If someone listening right now is like, I don't know how to hear my own intuition, it's a journey. It's a lifelong journey. And I think we have to give ourselves grace. That's the first thing. And I think that, we have to also see our intuition as a muscle that we build over time, right? We don't just oh, okay, and boom, I'm going to listen to my gut perfectly. It's a muscle that we build over time. And a couple ways to start building that muscle is just even to get still for 5 minutes in a day and just check in and say and just hear yourself, learn to hear yourself. And listen, there's women out there that they do not have 5 minutes in the day. So they need to go sit in the car and lock the doors, or they need to go in the bathroom, whichever bathroom has a lock on, lock the door, and literally just start to hear yourself. And then another thing you can do is just start to think back on times in your life. And a lot of people don't ever do this, but think back, was there a time when you had a feeling and you didn't listen to it? You listened to someone else, a friend who gave you advice or this or that, and then what happened, right? Or vice versa. Was there a time when everyone's saying, oh, you shouldn't do this or that, but you just had a feeling and you made the decision to trust it? And then what happened as a result? And when we start looking back and taking inventory of these times in our lives when we've done that, it helps us build our muscle of intuition more quickly. And I believe, Martha, when we learn to hear ourselves and we make the decision to trust ourselves, one step at a time, that's how we boost our own self-belief and our own confidence that, we're on our journey of stepping into who we are and the person we're called to be. I could have never started a dream in my living room and built it to the company it is now today, had I not learned to trust myself versus all the people that didn't believe in me on the journey.
Of course. What I tell everybody all the time is it's so easy to move forward and make decisions and grow and take risks when you have your cheering squad, when everybody's behind you, applauding you and telling you, go, Jamie, go. What is most difficult is to do everything when you don't have that cheering squad. Yes. And many times something that is very repetitive in stories of, great women like you that have gone through so much to achieve their dreams is that not all the time did you have a cheering squad, and the need to always go back and stay in touch with your gut feeling. And sometimes, and I remember when I started my company, I don't have an MBA, I'm a college dropout. I didn't know about business or technology. And so all these very educated voices would tell me, that what I was doing was not right, and that my project was not a good idea. And going back all the time, as you just said, and this is so educating for me as well, and so relieving, to connecting with your gut feeling and trusting your intuition beyond books and beyond an MBA or a PhD, and trusting that instinct that we tend to have and that we very seldom pay attention to was key to the success. And you said something very interesting, Jamie. People see the end result. People see the multi-billion-dollar result that It Cosmetics is today. And, I always tell people, everybody loves, the majority of people love the result, but not the process. So talk to me about the process. And I believe that there's always a price to pay. And that comes with the job.
You've said a couple of things that are so powerful, and I love that you share this with your community, because so many of us, when we feel like no one's cheering for us, we feel alone. And we feel like maybe we're doing something wrong, or maybe it's our partner that's not cheering for us the way we want, or our family or our friends. A couple of things just to share, because I love that you talk about this so much. This is so powerful, because so many people quit on their dreams or their goals because they think it's just them experiencing that, or they get their feelings hurt. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
I have learned that even the most well-intended people in our lives still see what we're doing through the lens of their own fear,
Absolutely.
the lens of their own experiences, right? The lens of their own limitations. So they have a different capacity than maybe we do to dream or to create or to impact the world. And I had to learn that the hard way, that it's not personal. They have a different capacity and they're seeing what I'm doing through the lens of their own fear. So maybe they're not showing up for me, rooting me on the way I wish they would, but it's not personal to us. And the other thing, oh my gosh, if I had learned this I wish I learned this lesson sooner. And just to share it in case someone needs to hear it today, if you're doing anything authentic, right? It's like, by definition, it's never been done before. So if you're doing something that's never been done before, so many experts, even if they're visionaries and experts and all of that, they still don't believe it's going to work, because subconsciously there's no proof it ever has, because it's never been done before. And often experts that are saying no to us, they've never created or built anything themselves in a lot of cases. And what I've learned is, and I just want to share this, whoever needs to hear it, so often people cheer for you after you've made it.
Of course.
Right? Not when you need the cheering on, because you're down and you're getting setbacks and rejection, and that's when you feel like you need the. But most people, they cheer you on after you've made it, and they say they always knew you'd make it. Then they say, like, they always believed in you. And you're like, what? But it's okay. It's just how it works. But anyone that's going through that season right now, I think it's just so important when we know, oh, it's not just us. We're not alone in this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We're all in this together.
Absolutely. And many times, I've heard so many people out there that tell me, I really want this, but I found out, and it's like really complicated because I have to do this and that and that and that and that. So it's not going to happen. So I said, it's okay not to want something, but what is not okay is to want something and to use excuses of not paying the price that needs to be paid and not doing what needs to be done as an excuse. I love the saying, if you want to have what few people have, you have to be willing to do what few people do. And few people are willing to pay that price and that process to get that result,
I think that what you said is so key, is that it's okay to want it or not want it. But if you do want it, right? And so there's things that, I've never shared these stories before, but I went really deep in my book, Believe It, because, I started my business with my husband, and we got to the point, I mean, we were doing 100-hour weeks for almost a decade. And there's things I don't think I had to do, actually. I think you can have the outcome we had without having to do those things. There's other things we had to do. We had to get scrappy when we couldn't afford to hire anybody and try to figure out how to do every job in the beginning. We had to, you know, our date night was going to this $1 hot dog stand because we had to prioritize like cash flow in the business and what our customers needed over what might have looked good on social media. Do you know what I mean? And there's all the things you do have to do, and you make the decision if you want to do them or not. But you're right, and especially nowadays, especially in the social media world, a lot of times people want the outcome, but then they're like, oh, I didn't know it'd be, you know, this fun or this hard and this challenging and this unglamorous and all of that. But it is. And, you know, I'm sure there's people out there that have it easy, but part of why I'm sharing my story, part of why I wrote the book is for people that feel like they don't know what to do when they're sitting there in their living room, they're scrappy, they can't afford to hire anyone. Everyone's telling them no. People are staring them in the eye saying you're not enough and you're never going to make it. And this book is about what do you do when that happens to you and how do you go through it? But I love that you share the real stuff, because in this day and age, it's easy to just want things to happen like that and want them to be easy and want them to look good on Instagram while we're doing them. And that's just not like, you know what I mean?
That's not the reality. That's not the reality. So the book is out, believe it, How to Go From Underestimated to Unstoppable. I'm sure they can find it anywhere and everywhere. And because this is March and it's Women's Month, before we go, Jamie, what would you like to say to every woman watching this and listening to this conversation? What do you want them to know?
I want them to know that you are enough and you have everything you need inside of you right now to accomplish your wildest dreams. And I think the most important thing, step one, is to believe that, to believe it for yourself. And I also think, you know, we're all in this together. Like, we really are all in this together. And I think that the more that we uplift each other and I talk a lot in the book about a famous quote that says, her victory is your victory. Like, I think this is important too, Martha, that there's an antiquated, old school kind of thing still out there that's like, oh, if one woman's success takes away from another, it's like, oh no. Like, I believe that we get in life what we give. I believe when we bring another woman to the table, we rise higher. I believe all of those things. And I believe that we are only on this earth, not to compete with anyone else, but to compete with the person God made us capable of becoming. Like, that's who we're here. And I know I'm nowhere near that person yet. That's who we're here to compete with. So I love this month, and I love every single day when, as women, we come together like you and I are doing right now, and we all rise higher together, right? Yep.
So I love the saying, the strongest women out there are the ones you see supporting each other. Always. Jamie, thank you so much for being with us. Thank you so much for talking to us. Thank you so much for the bye-bye under eye, for my CC cream, for the universal eyebrow.
Yes, it's so
love
good.
Love them all. Biggest fan. El libro se llama Believe It, Cómo llegar de subestimada a imparable, de Jamie Kern Lima, fundadora de It Cosmetics. A big kiss to you all the way to wherever you are.
Yes, you too.
See you soon.
See you soon.
Bueno, cuentavientes, qué increíble conversación y qué maravilla tener a Jamie con nosotros. Espero que lo hayan disfrutado tanto como lo disfrutamos nosotros. Y acuérdense, la gente exitosa, la gente que logra cosas increíbles en la vida, es la gente que hace que las cosas sucedan a pesar de no tener aporristas, a pesar de no tener el apoyo y la aprobación de los demás. Y algo muy lindo que dijo Jamie es aprender a silenciar las voces externas y a subirle el volumen a nuestro instinto, a la tripa, a la intuición, escucharnos y ejercitar el músculo de la autoconfianza para hacer que cualquiera de nuestros sueños allá afuera, el que sea que tengan cada una de ustedes o cada uno de ustedes, lo hagan realidad. Les mando un gran beso y acuérdense lo que les digo siempre, lo que sea que sepan, siempre compártanlo. Share knowledge. denos clic en la campanita, subscribe si les gusta nuestro contenido y nos vemos en el próximo Debayle Talk.